Live from New Delhi, you're watching live from New Delhi on DD India News Hour. DD India is indeed India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next hour. At Munich Security Conference, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls for a global order that works for everyone. External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, meets leaders from the UK, Peru and Bulgaria on the sidelines. United States House of Representatives passes the Quad Bill to facilitate closer cooperation between member countries, the US, India, Australia and Japan. And Russia's opposition leader Alexei Navalny dies in prison. World leaders express deep shock. And in cricket, Ben Duckett's blistering knock takes England to 207 for 2 at stumps on day 2 of the third test match after host India bowled out for 445 runs. On top of News are giving impetus to the overall development in the western Indian state of Rajasthan. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi dedicated multiple development projects worth over $2 billion. Now, these projects cover vital sectors such as roads, railways, solar energy, power transmission, drinking water, petroleum and natural gas. All this signalling a big development push.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the Viksit Bharat, Viksit Rajasthan program via video conferencing on Friday. Prime Minister inaugurated, dedicated and laid the foundation stone of multiple development projects worth over $2 billion. The projects cater to several important sectors, including roads, railways, solar energy, power transmission, drinking water and petroleum and natural gas. Addressing the event, PM Modi said that Viksit Bharat is not just a word or an emotion, but it is a campaign to make the life of every family prosperous.
विकसित भारत के लिए विकसित राजस्थान का निर्माण बहुत जरूरी है और विकसित राजस्थान के लिए रेल, रोड, बिजली, पानी जैसी महत्वपूर्ण सुविधाओं का तेज विकास होना जरूरी है.
Prime Minister highlighted that the infra development will hugely benefit the farmers, industries and tourism to give employment opportunities to the state. Prime Minister Modi also stressed that government has focused on bringing Rajasthan out of electricity and power problems.
हमने सरकार में आने के बाद देश को बिजली की चुनौतियों से निकालने पर ध्यान दिया. हमने नीतियां बनाई, निर्णय लिए. हमने सौर ऊर्जा जैसे बिजली उत्पादन के नए नए सेक्टर्स पर जोर दिया. और आज देखिए, हालात बिल्कुल बदल गए हैं. आज भारत सौर ऊर्जा, सोलर एनर्जी से बिजली पैदा करने के मामले में दुनिया में अग्रणी देशों में आ चुका है.
Prime Minister also reiterated the focus on the development of the 4 sections, that is youth, women, farmers and the poor. The centre and the state government is fulfilling the guarantees given by Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the empowerment of all sections.
And in yet another development outreach, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also inaugurated a slew of projects in North Indian state of Haryana. We have more.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated, dedicated to the nation and laid the foundation stone of multiple development projects worth over $1.1 billion in Rewari, Haryana on Friday. Development projects included urban transport, health, rail and tourism sector. Addressing the event, Prime Minister Modi said that Rewari is the first city to witness Modi's guarantee.
आजकल देश और दुनिया में मोदी की गारंटी की बहुत चर्चा है। और रेवाड़ी तो मोदी की गारंटी का सबसे पहला गवाह है। कांग्रेस ने दशकों तक जम्मू कश्मीर से आर्टिकल 370 हटाने पर रोड़े अटकाए थे। मैंने आपको गारंटी दी थी कि जम्मू कश्मीर से आर्टिकल 370 हटाकर रहूंगा। इसलिए ही तो लोगों ने एक और संकल्प लिया है। जिसने 370 हटाया उस बीजेपी का टीका 370 सीटों से होगा।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also laid the foundation stone of Gurugram Metro Rail project worth about $656 million and laid the foundation stone of AIIMS in Haryana. PM Modi underlined that the double-engine government is striving to make Haryana a developed state and create new employment opportunities in every sector.
एक तरफ कांग्रेस का कुशासन है और दूसरी तरफ बीजेपी का सुशासन। यहां 10 वर्षों से डबल इंजन सरकार है। इसलिए गरीब कल्याण की जो भी योजनाएं मोदी ने बनाई है उनके 100% अमल में हरियाणा अव्वल है।
With these development projects, the state of Haryana will emerge as a top spot for investment and help in creating new job opportunities for the youth. With inputs from Tripti, Tanvi Thaneja for DD India.
The 60th Munich Security Conference opened in Germany's Munich on Friday, which is expected to put spotlights on the Russia-Ukraine conflict and Palestine-Israel conflict as well. More than 180 government officials, defense and military personnel, as well as security experts are attending this three-day conference, which is aimed at addressing the ongoing conflicts and potential security problems, seeking solutions and also promoting peace through dialogue. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres attended the opening ceremony and he has called for, and I quote, a global order that works for everyone, unquote.
Unconscionable terror attacks launched by Hamas on 7 October against Israel. And nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people in Israel's military response. The situation in Gaza is an appalling indictment of the deadlock in global relations. The level of death and destruction is shocking in itself, and the war is also spilling over borders across the region and affecting global trade.
And this year's conference is being held under the chairmanship of the German ambassador to the US, Christoph Heusen. The 60th Munich Security Conference is likely to be dominated also by the wars in Israel and Ukraine, as well as fears over the US commitment to defending its allies are concerned. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, US Vice President Kamala Harris and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky are among the top officials attending the conference. Now, dubbed as Davos of Defense, this Munich Security Conference will also see an estimated 60 heads of states, over 85 government officials to discuss the ongoing conflicts, as we mentioned earlier, and potential future ones reportedly as well. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi are also among the top-level delegates due to speak, as per some reports. And in his address at the Munich Security Conference, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has said that no NATO ally was in any military threat. He assured their security with preparedness and increased spending on defense.
There is no imminent military threat against any NATO ally. NATO continues to ensure there is no room for miscalculation in Moscow about our readiness to protect all allies. With more forces, higher readiness and increased defence spending.
And now let's go live across to Trent Murray joining us for more. Now, Trent, this year's, yes, he's there with us, joining us from Munich. Now, this year's security conference in Munich is being pitched in a big way, or dubbed in a big way, as one of the most consequential in its 60-year history. Now, fittingly for a very high security forum that it is, the front and the center of the event will be dominated by ongoing wars in Europe and Middle East. So the timings and the intent of the purpose this time around is very crucial.
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial, and I think you're right to say that this gathering is taking place at a time where it really feels there are a number of conflict zones and potential flashpoints which could bring further conflict, further war into play. And so what you're seeing is these big high-level discussions taking place in the main forum, speeches from the likes of Vice President Kamala Harris, and that clip there we heard of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. And we know there's also a number of other meetings taking place behind closed doors. Of course, India is represented here by External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, and he's been having a number of meetings, including with his UK counterpart, David Cameron. He also spoke with the Secretary of State of the United States, Antony Blinken, when he said it's been great to meet with my US counterpart, Antony Blinken. And he also has spoken to the EU's chief diplomat, Joseph Borrell, in which he said he was delighted to talk about some of the key challenges facing India, Europe and the world. And he also said he looks forward to welcoming Mr. Borrell to India later this year.
There are also reports suggesting that Zelensky and Antony Blinken and Scholz are also expected to speak. If you could just bring us up to speed with the developments so far. For the fact trend, you would agree there are also divergent voices from the other parts of the world. And should we then also expect potential paths of resolution to be drawn also?
Yeah, well, I think the main slogan of this conference always is trying to find peace through dialogue. And so what you will often see is representatives invited from other parts of the world that aren't necessarily from Europe, and places where there have been flashpoints or disagreements at times in terms of policy. And that includes China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi. He is here. We know he's going to speak with his, again, US counterpart around some of those challenges. We know the relations between Beijing and Washington have been prickly at times in recent years, but there has been some promise in recent months, especially following that meeting with President Biden and President Xi, that sort of frosty relationship is starting to thaw. On the Zelensky question, I think this is really crucial because he will address his conference over the weekend, where he is expected to continue to call for more Western support to help his country, really at a time when we know just a little bit of war fatigue is setting in parts of the West, in Europe, in America, around how this conflict will come to an end and just how much more money and military resources it's going to cost.
Okay, finally, quick one. Now, do you think, Trent, the spectre of the second Trump presidency also looms large over the event after his whatever the hell they want, quote unquote, comment is concerned, or his position on Russia is concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'd say that's one of the main themes of this conference, is Europe looking for some sort of assurance that Washington is still with it. I mean, those comments from President Trump caused shockwaves across this continent, I have to say. Vice President Harris spoke at the conference earlier today, in which she said America isn't retreating, it's going to continue to stick with its allies, but undoubtedly that very combative election campaign taking place in America is being very closely watched by the Europeans.
Okay, finally, very quick one. There are reports of expected demonstrations over the weekend. What can you share with us?
Yeah. Absolutely. Many protests taking place, anti-war protests and other groups. We actually just were at one earlier featuring diaspora from the Iranian community here in Germany calling for democracy to be brought to Iran and attacking the Ayatollah there. We also know there's a number of pro-Palestine gatherings which are being planned, people coming together to call for a ceasefire and for Israel to back off on its military operation within Gaza. And we are also expecting some Ukrainian groups here to also protest again to try and echo that call from their President Zelensky for Germany, America, other European countries to maintain that military and financial support to Kyiv in order for them to try and repel that Russian invasion in the east.
All right, thank you very much, Trent Murray, for joining us live all the way from Munich, where the World Security Conference is underway. Thank you very much. Munich Security Conference is underway. Thank you. And staying with the conference, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar on Friday began his engagements on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference by meeting United Kingdom Foreign Secretary David Cameron. In the meeting, External Affairs Minister of India and his UK counterpart discussed India-UK bilateral cooperation and global as well as regional issues. Additionally, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar also met with Peru Foreign Minister Xavier Gonzalez Olichia and spoke about the significant reforms in the United Nations and India-Peru economic cooperation. Staying with the story, India's External Affairs Minister also met Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Bulgaria, Gabriel Maria, on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference 2024. Both the leaders discussed the growing bilateral relationships and welcomed Bulgaria's decision of joining International Solar Alliance. Furthermore, the Russia-Ukraine conflict was also discussed by the two leaders. Okay, let's move on to the other story now. Are we going back to Trent? Trent, let's have a quick one on Jaishankar, Dr. Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar's engagements on the sidelines of the Munich conference. Coming up next, US House of Representatives passes Quad bill which facilitates a Quad intra-parliamentary working group. Big push for bolstering ties with Quad grouping. Russia-Ukraine war enters 723rd day. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed security agreement. Pakistan continues to be in disarray. Imran Khan's Tehreek-e-Insaf gives clarion call for protests against the unprecedented rigging in general elections 2024.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
A platform for the developing world, amplifying the voice of the global south with a focus on the growing economies, resolving the conflicts, showcasing the culture, tradition, heritage and diversity. Watch Voice of the Global South at these times on DD India.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday 8 p.m. only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Now let's move on to the other big stories we are tracking for you. The US House of Representatives has passed the Quad bill, which instructs the Biden administration to establish a Quad intra-parliamentary working group to facilitate closer cooperation between the US, Australia, India and Japan. Now passed by a roll call vote of 379 to 39 votes, Quad bill says that the joint cooperation between US, Australia, India and Japan should be strengthened. It directs the State Department to submit to Congress within 180 days of the bill's enactment a strategy to increase engagement and cooperation with the Quad. The bill also would establish a US group which would have a maximum of 24 members of Congress to represent the US in the working group. It would also establish guidelines for annual meetings and group leadership. Under the bill, the group would be required to submit an annual report to the Congressional Foreign Affairs Committee. And to put the passage of the bill in context and understand its wide-reaching implications, let's go live across to Benji Hire of DD India, joining us live from Washington, D.C. Benji, good morning there, over to you now. Good morning for you, rather. Just quickly to begin with, make us understand the significance of this proposed legislation of Quad, specifically as a strategy to increase more engagement and cooperation within the Quad grouping.
Well, I think that's best answered by looking at the words of the man who brought this forward, Representative Gregory Meeks, who was formerly chair of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs in the lower chamber of Congress in the United States. He was the one that proposed this bill that would require the US State Department, part of the US Biden administration, to feed back information on a strategy to help embolden engagement and cooperation with that squad, with the squad, the members being the United States, Australia, Japan and India, and feed that to Congress, almost creating a situation where there's transparency and oversight. There are three main objectives here. Number one is to prepare for the next pandemic. So that is obviously in light of COVID-19, making sure that these four major global players can establish a plan in case there is any sort of outbreak, as we've seen before. Co-developing new innovative technologies is number two. And three, deepening economic engagement and integration. This is something that's been praised by Congressman Meeks. He talks about the success and the longevity of this potential group, a working group of countries. And this is, I think, the key point that he will want to drive home, and many in the US administration will want to drive home, which is that with the rise of authoritarianism around the world, he says, it is vital that our democracies, these four democracies, he says, work together to showcase the success of open markets, promote democratic governance, and, he says, deliver real results.
Yeah, taking a particular cue on that authoritarian regime aimed at countering the rise of the authoritarian regime across the globe, pointed out by Biden himself, how does this proposed legislation really work to ensure Quad's grouping success, its longevity, and most importantly, the democratic coordination within the Indo-Pacific region in particular?
Look, that's the big question, and ultimately, as much as we read through these words from Gregory Meeks and others, there is one key word, I think, that's missing from all of this, and that is China. The threat perceived, at least, by members of the Quad's countries, the United States, Japan and Australia, and India for other more regional issues, highlights the intent for these four countries to create almost a coalition globally in order to counter the rise and the threats of China. And in terms of economic and security cooperation, well, the hope, at least from the Biden administration, or at least from the representatives in Congress that have brought this forward, is to continue with that cooperation and continue with the pressure on China. No firm mention in this bill in any sort of security deals, although there were, of course, agreements put forward between the Biden administration and Prime Minister Modi's government during his visit here. I should just add that whilst there has been large consensus over this bill, you read out the numbers of people who voted for it, there was still some opposition. Congressman Ilhan Omar, who boycotted Prime Minister Modi's address to Congress, was one of them to vote against the bill on human rights concerns. And there are also some issues going forward in terms of all the countries don't have the same stance on global issues such as the Israel-Gaza war, the war in Ukraine. It is unclear how the relationship between Washington and New Delhi will move forward in regard to other issues, accusations of an alleged Sikh assassination plot on US soil. And also, consider this, 3 out of the 4 Quad countries, not Australia, the other 3, will face elections in the coming months and year that could change the game entirely.
Yes, yes, that's a pertinent point that you've raised, and also that point where you mentioned that there's no mention specifically of China, but a clear indication as far as the expansionist regime of certain countries is concerned. Thank you very much, Benji Haya, for joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thanks. Moving on, jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is dead. The prison service of the Yamalo-Nenets region, where he is been serving his sentence, has said on Friday. Now, in a statement published on its website, the Federal Penitentiary Service of the Yamalo-Nenets Autonomous District said that Navalny felt unwell after a walk on Friday and almost immediately lost consciousness. It said that medical staff had been called, but that they were unable to resuscitate Navalny. It said the reason of death was being established. Russia's investigative committee has launched a procedural probe into the death of opposition leader Alexei Navalny in a penal colony. World leaders have expressed deep shock at the demise of Alexei Navalny. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a security agreement at a ceremony in the German capital on Friday. The deals of the agreement were not immediately made public. Zelensky is visiting Germany and France to drum up support for more military aid as the war with Russia nears its 3rd year. Ukraine faces a shortage of manpower and ammunition stockpiles, while U.S. military said aid has been delayed for months. Germany and France were poised to become the 2nd and 3rd Ukrainian allies to sign bilateral security deals that would establish terms for continued support until Ukraine reaches its goal of joining the NATO military alliance. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has suffered 2 heavy blows to his leadership ahead of a general election later this year as the opposition leader party overturned strong Conservative majorities to win by-elections in England on Friday. Labour's Dan Egan won the House of Commons seat of Kingswood, southwest England, and the party's Jen Kitchen won Wellingborough in the East Midlands region of England. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Sunak said that twin defeats for his Conservative Party showed the party had more work to do ahead of a national vote expected later this year.
Governments and the circumstances of these by-elections were, of course, particularly challenging. Now, I think if you look at the results, very low turnout, and it shows that we've got work to do to show people that we are delivering on their priorities, and that's what I'm absolutely determined to do, but also shows that there isn't a huge amount of enthusiasm for the alternative in Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, and that's because they don't have a plan, and if you don't have a plan, you can't deliver real change, and when the general election comes, that's the message I'll be making to the country. Stick with our plan, because it is starting to deliver the change that the country wants and needs.
Well, Pakistan continues to be in disarray with chaos of allegations and protests escalating by the day. The United States has expressed concerns about reports of intimidation and voter suppression in Pakistan's election, while Islamabad police has slapped Section 144 in a desperate attempt to restore order on streets. Imran Khan's Tehreek-e-Insaf has called for protests against the unprecedented, massive, brazen rigging in general elections 2024. That's how they describe it. Here's more by Sagnik.
Declared a ban on illegal gatherings within the federal capital under the enforcement of Section 144 reportedly. According to a spokesperson of the Islamabad police, protest is the fundamental right of everyone, but any illegal act will not be allowed. The announcement comes amidst the backdrop of various political parties planning protests against alleged electoral irregularities in the recently held elections. Notably, Pakistan's recent elections failed to produce a clear majority for any single party, with independent candidates supported by a jailed former Prime Minister securing 92 out of 264 seats, emerging as the largest group. Meanwhile, the United States says it is concerned about reports of intimidation and voter suppression in Pakistan's election.
We're concerned. and we share concerns about some of the reports that we've heard coming out of Pakistan in terms of intimidation, voter suppression, that kind of thing. And so we're watching this very, very closely. And as I understand it, votes are still being tallied. So international monitors are still taking a look at those tallies. I'm not going to get ahead of that process.
Meanwhile, a 3-judge bench of the Pakistan Supreme Court will hear a petition seeking to declare the 8th February general elections null and void on Monday, as reported by the Express Tribune. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan's party is going to protest across the country on Saturday against what it called widespread rigging in the general elections. In a recent post on social media platform X, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf has called for protests against the unprecedented massive brazen rigging in general elections 2024. Meanwhile, in a message from jail, the former Prime Minister also called on the US to raise their voice over concerns about the transparency of the general elections. Amidst all this, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz and the Pakistan People's Party are holding a second round of talks regarding the power-sharing arrangement in the coalition government. The Bilawal Bhutto Zardari-led PPP has promised to back PMLN in the formation of a government as well as the election of the next Prime Minister on the condition that Nawaz Sharif's party will support them in elections to key constitutional offices like that of the President. Shagnik Chakraborty reporting for DD India.
In other news, the 6th Regional Dialogue of Secretaries of the Security Councils and the National Security Advisors on Afghanistan was held in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan on Friday, where Deputy National Security Advisor Vikram Misri represented India. The dialogue mechanism included Iran, India, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, China, Turkmenistan and Pakistan. India's Deputy National Security Advisor discussed security and political situation in Afghanistan with his counterparts. India's Deputy NSA Misri highlighted India's policy in support of peace, security and stability in Afghanistan, and also said India has still now supplied nearly 50,000 tons of wheat, 250 tons of medical aid, 28 tons of earthquake relief aid, and invested more than $3 billion for the welfare of the people of Afghanistan. Still to come on DD India News Hour. On the other side of the break, we will tell you what is happening in our neighborhood Pakistan. The instability, chaos, crises continue on ground. And we also talk about exclusive Bangladesh Foreign Minister DD India exclusive interview. He says Bangladesh is coordinating its position with India as fighting intensifies between Myanmar army and ethnic rebels. Launch of GSLV F-14 INSAT 3DS mission is set for Saturday, February 17, 2024 at 17:35 hours. DD India News Hour, I'm Sakal Bhatt, and before we move on, let's show a quick recap of the headlines at this hour. At Munich Security Conference, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls for a global order that works for everyone. External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, meets leaders from the UK, Peru and Bulgaria on the sidelines. United States House of Representatives passes the Quad bill to facilitate closer cooperation between member countries, US, India, Australia and Japan. Russia's opposition leader Alexei Navalny dies in prison. World leaders express deep shock. And going back to the story on Pakistan, where disarray, chaos and crises continue on ground, we are joined by Amjad Ayub Mirza. He's a prominent author, human rights activist, who is currently joining us live from London. He's in fact living in exile in London, but he's originally the resident of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and a very famous human rights activist there. Thank you very much, Mr. Mirza, for joining us. Namaskar. Thank you.
For having me.
So to begin with, what is really happening now as far as the political instability is concerned and the claims made by the PTI and, you know, the whole claims and counter-claims and this race to grab power, do we get to see any stability maybe in next month or so? Where is this all adding up to? Fresh elections?
Well, that's a very good point, actually, because what is transpiring now not only seems that Pakistan is going to remain very unstable in the coming months, but also that the only way out of this quagmire of elections, which is being said to be heavily rigged, seems to be a rerun of another election. So I think in the coming days, we might see that the Election Commission will come up with some kind of solution, because otherwise this mandate, whoever has the mandate, apart from Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, doesn't hold any ground and doesn't have any credibility. So much so that the leader of the so-called majority party in these elections, which is Pakistan Muslim League,
yes,
Nawaz, he has refused and declined to become Prime Minister, the candidate for Prime Minister in this, and he's put forward the name of his brother, because even his seats are said to be, you know, rigged, and given him the mandate instead of giving Yasmin Rashid in Lahore, who was contesting against Nawaz Sharif, and she won the election. And in the morning, they announced that Nawaz Sharif has won the election. Nawaz Sharif has lost the election, even in his in-laws, his daughter's in-laws constituency in Mansehra. So the majority seats have been won, obviously, by Imran Khan's party as independents. But they have held a massive press conference in a local hotel in Islamabad today, where each of the candidates of Imran Khan presented their case that they were made to lose the elections. Their constituencies.
But one thing is very clear, that this is a mockery of an electoral process. You would agree, wouldn't you? And the fact that the legitimacy of these elections, Amjad Saab, is sub judice. There is a petition in the court whether these elections will be declared null and void. I mean, we have to really see what court says.
Well, I think that elections, whether the courts decide that they are null and void or not, that's beside the point. The point is that the people of Pakistan are saying that these elections are null and void, and protests have already started today in Sindh.
Who is a popular leader, Amjad Saab, to your understanding, who, as we speak, represents truly the will of the people of Pakistan?
Well, currently it seems that it is Imran Khan, who represents the will of the Pakistani people. Not mine, but the people of Pakistan. That's whom they have voted for.
Okay. Is this the political parties in Pakistan, do you think they this time around have failed to actually read the magnitude of the message delivered by the people of Pakistan, taking the Pakistani electorate too much for granted, and finally it's going to be a big mess, which it is, and world is watching. Whether US comments on its transparency or not, does it really make a difference?
I think it does make a difference when America and the European Union and even FAFEN, who was conducting observational duties in Pakistan, all have raised questions on the legitimacy of this election result. It does make a difference, but the actual difference is now going to be made by the people of Pakistan, who are going to come out and protest tomorrow. All the big parties, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the Jamaat-e-Islami, Maulana Fazlur Rahman's Jamiat-ul-Ulama-e-Islam, the GDA, all big parties are going to
they will
hit,
come, but who calls the shots? These protests will be suppressed.
Well, protests will be suppressed, but it depends. It might turn out that the more they try to suppress the protest, the more violent the protest might turn. You know, it could be a rerun of 9th of May plus, you know. There will be bloodshed, I think, if the government and the military try to confront, you see.
So is Pakistan, I mean, can we say there are the markings of the failed state there, or perhaps the failed state out there?
Pakistan is a failed state. It has been a failed state for at least a decade and a half now. It's just that they are plodding along because of Chinese loans and IMF loans. Pakistan is a lost case, actually. There is civil war going on in Balochistan. There is terrorist activities going on in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And in Pakistani-occupied Jammu Kashmir, people have not been paid wages for a year. Pensions haven't been paid for a year. Gilgit-Baltistan, the people of Gilgit-Baltistan are on the roads. For the past 10 months, there have been massive civil disobedience movement in both occupied territories of Gilgit-Baltistan and Pakistani-occupied Jammu Kashmir. How are they going to handle this? Plus, they have to negotiate soon with IMF for the release of $6 million of IMF package. Who's going to talk to the IMF, or who the IMF is going to talk to? There is no government. And even if they form a government, there's no legitimacy.
Yes, absolutely. One final question. Are we now assessing or looking at radically new situation in Pakistan, given its history of uncertainty, government toppling, rigging, state-sponsored terrorism, and much more? In near future, do you think there could be some semblance of grace? There's something left in terms of restoring normalcy, or whatever bit of that is left? Because all these parties are claiming to be the popular ones, but that doesn't seem to be the case, really.
Well, you see, an unstable Pakistan is also bothersome for India. India does not want Pakistan to be unstable. It's a neighboring country. It's a major country with a serious territorial dispute with India. So India also wants a stable government. Modi ji once said that हमें ये समझ नहीं आती हम किससे बात करें.
Yes, Mr. Mirza, finally what I wanted to ask from you is, in near future, do you think there is any scope left to restore normalcy, the way things are going on ground politically, especially the political parties?
Well, the only way there can be some kind of normalcy is if there is a rerun of elections, or if those who have rigged the elections, they accept their failure and let the party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf or Imran Khan, who form a government, who have legitimately won the elections. And the deep state has to step back if there has to be some kind of semblance of normalcy in Pakistan. And for that, I think the only way forward would be another general election.
All right, we'll see how it pans out, especially the 3-judge bench committee, of how the call the court really takes on these elections. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us, Mr. Mirza from London. Thank you, sir. And from Pakistan, moving on to some story coming in from Bangladesh, where Bangladesh has said it is coordinating its position with India as fighting intensifies between Myanmar army and ethnic rebels. For a country that hosts more than 1 million Rohingyas, it now has to contend with the influx of Myanmar nationals fleeing the latest round of fighting that broke out earlier this month. In fact, Bangladesh's Foreign Minister Hassan Mahmood spoke exclusively to DD India's Ramesh Ramachandran during his recent visit to New Delhi. It was his first official visit to India and his first bilateral visit to any country after assuming office as the Foreign Minister in January.
Bangladesh has repatriated more than 300 soldiers and civilians to Myanmar. They had taken shelter from the fighting between Myanmar army and rebels in the Rakhine and Chin provinces bordering India and Bangladesh. Bangladesh's foreign minister, who recently visited India, says that the situation at his country's border with Myanmar is worrying.
This is a worrying factor because shells are entering in Bangladesh. Already 2 people in Bangladesh have been killed by the shells thrown in Myanmar because of their internal conflict. So this is a disturbing issue and worrying factor for us.
The issue figured in the minister's talks in New Delhi.
India and Bangladesh should work together, and I have discussed this issue to work together on this issue so that because destabilization or conflict in Myanmar is destabilizing the region. It has impact on our region.
He says that Bangladesh's relationship with India stands on its own.
China is our development partner, but the relationship between India and Bangladesh is not comparable with any other country, as I've said earlier, because our relationship is bonded by blood, and the amount of diversification of the relationship we have and the height that we have achieved under the leadership of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and under the Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, this is not comparable with any other relationship.
The minister echoes Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's call for a woman to lead the United Nations as its Secretary General.
I think UN reform is highly demanded, because when UN was formed, and that is a long time ago, a few decades back, the total global scenario has been changed now. So UN reform is a legitimate demand that I believe. So far, all our Secretary Generals are men, so why not women Secretary General?
Hasina is the world's longest-serving woman head of government. She won her 4th consecutive term in office and 5th overall after the 7th January election. Ramesh Ramachandran reporting for DD India.
In other news, the launch of the GSLV F-14 INSAT 3DS mission is set for Saturday, February 17, 2024 at 17:35 hours IST from Sriharikota base. The GSLV mission aims at deploying the INSAT 3DS meteorological satellite into the geosynchronous transfer orbit, or GTO. The satellite's primary objectives are multifaceted and crucial for environmental monitoring and safety. It is also equipped to monitor Earth's surface and carry out oceanic observations in various spectral channels that are vital for meteorological analysis. We take a look at this special report.
ISRO's 16th GSLV mission on Saturday is aimed at providing the vertical profile of various meteorological parameters of the atmosphere, provide the data collection and data dissemination capabilities from the data collection platforms, and also boast satellite-aided search and rescue services. This geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle, GSLV, is a 3-stage 51.7-meter-long launch vehicle having a lift-off mass of 420 tons. The first stage, GS1, comprises a solid propellant S139 motor having 139-ton propellant and 4 earth-storable propellant stages L40 strap-ons, which carry 40 tons of liquid propellant in each. The second stage, GS2, is also an earth-storable propellant stage loaded with 40-ton propellant. The third stage, GS3, is a cryogenic stage with a 15-ton propellant loading of liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. GSLV F-14 INSAT 3DS mission is funded by the Ministry of Earth Sciences. It is designed for enhanced meteorological observations and monitoring of land and ocean surfaces for weather forecasting and disaster warning. The satellite will augment the meteorological services along with the presently operational INSAT 3D and INSAT 3DR satellites. Indian industries have significantly contributed to the making of the satellite. INSAT 3DS satellite is a follow-on mission of third-generation meteorological satellite from geostationary orbit. Various departments of the Ministry of Earth Sciences, such as the Indian Meteorology Department, National Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecasting, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, National Institute of Ocean Technology, Indian National Centre for Ocean Information Services, and various other agencies and institutes will be using the INSAT 3DS satellite data to provide improved weather forecast. Aisha Khanam reports for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Coming up next, India third among top 10 of the world for organ transplantation. Ben Duckett magnificent 133 cements England's stay level at stumps at the end of day 2 in Rajkot.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge in
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, has paid a visit to the hybrid power project site at Nainathivu Island in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, the Indian High Commissioner also offered prayers at Nagapushani Amman Temple in Nagavihara and the ancient Thiruketavaram temple, which was renovated with grant assistance from India. He later distributed deep freezers to the fishermen community of Mannar district as well. Well, India has achieved the feat of securing a third position among the top 10 countries of the world that can perform organ transplants. Touching milestones in the field of organ transplantation from a living donor, India hit the top position, leaving behind countries like the US. India is far behind in collecting organs from posthumous donors, and people are being encouraged to come forward to donate their bodies. Here's a special report.
India ranks third among the top 10 countries in the world in terms of both living and deceased organ donors. When it comes to receiving organs from living donors, India is in the first position. For the first time in 75 years, the country has surpassed a figure of 1,000 in organ transplant from the deceased.
If we compare the 10 best countries which are doing highest number of organ transplants in the world, India stands at number 3 after USA and China. This is as per the comparison of 2022 data. And India is, if we compare the people who have donated after as a living donor, that is after when they are alive. If, as you know, that we can donate as a living person kidney and liver. And when those who have donated after living donation and those transplants which happen from living donor, India stands at, in the total number of such living donor transplants, India is at number 1 in the world.
In the year 2023, hospitals in the country have performed a total of 16,941 organ transplants for the first time in a year. These include 12,343 kidneys, 4,160 liver, 215 heart, 189 lungs, 20 pancreases, and 14 small intestines. Out of 16,941, only 1,062 transplants were done from organs obtained from death. But experts say it is not enough.
We are looking to encourage deceased organ donation, that is donation after death. As you know, one person after donation, when he donates after brainstem death situation, he can save 8 to 9 lives.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has discussed and encouraged organ donation several times in his monthly program Mann Ki Baat. As a result of this, people are now coming forward in large numbers for organ donation. From the Ayushman Bhava campaign to date, 143,000 people have pledged to donate organs. One body donation of a deceased can save several lives. Nitendra Singh's report for DD India from New Delhi.
In other news, the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways has successfully concluded the stakeholders' meet in India's national capital, New Delhi. Global Maritime India Summit is an annual meet of the ministry. The ministry also draws action plan for swift implementation of Memorandum of Understanding signed during this meet. The event was graced by the Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Sarbanda Sonowal. While speaking, he said, and I quote, "The Maritime Amrit Kal vision was announced by Prime Minister Modi, and the Global Maritime India Summit is a continuation of country's strategic initiatives for sustainable growth." You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for some sports news. Ben Duckett's magnificent 133 knock has helped England stay level at stumps at the end of the day 2 in Rajkot. England brought up 207 runs for the loss of 2 wickets in just 35 overs at the end of the day 2 in the third test match. Opener Ben Duckett smashed an 88-ball 100 to lead England's robust reply to India's first innings total of 445. The opener's 133 not out of 118 balls contained 2 sixes and 21 fours. Though the visitors are trailing by 238 runs, their brisk scoring rate has put India on the back foot. Earlier, debutant Dhruv Jurel and Ashwin mounted a spirited knock, while Jasprit Bumrah provided a late cameo to take India near 450 mark. And meanwhile, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday also congratulated Indian all-rounder R. Ashwin for completing 500 wickets in Test cricket. Ashwin became second Indian bowler after Anil Kumble to claim 500 Test wickets. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, that is X, also formerly known as Twitter. You can reach out to us on Instagram. We will be back with more news as it breaks here only on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.
A platform